Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about effective instruction, according to Jim Burke. Just in advance, I want to apologize for the background noise. That is actually my DVRs at work. So I'm currently doing this at work. So I want to apologize in advance. So let's begin. So Jim Burke wants to let us know that there are three unique characteristics when it comes to having effective teaching abilities. So competent in their subject matter, which is probably the most important thing, care deeply about the students and their success, and to take a distinct role in the classroom. Obviously, I believe the first one is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't have a good ability on or good knowledge in the subject that you're teaching, then your students won't believe in you, and you would basically lose the students. Caring deeply about your students' success as well shows the students that that you're there for them and not just to come and go every single day. And then taking a distinctive role in the classroom, you are the head of the classroom, and you will have these students or have your students be a part of that. And Jim Burke also says that there's 10 elements of effective instruction and that are broken up into the book. And the first section is about instruction that works. The second is classroom culture, and the third one is curriculum basics. So let's get into them. So varying your instruction methods and strategies. So use multiple points of view in every subject and lesson. So use analogies, stories, different modes of teaching. A great example for me, since I'm a history, social science teacher right now, in class, we're actually doing the Russian Revolution, and I'm trying my best way to tell them what it was like, for example, when the Russian Tsar was, having his program deals going through and killing, Russian and Jews. I made the analogy of, it's kind of the same thing that was going on during the Holocaust. They were just persecuting all these minorities in Russia. So that's one of the methods that I was trying to use by using analogies. And also when I try to help my students in groups, I make sure that they are with students that are good for their needs and they're not just goofing around to the best that I can. Second, Jim Burke wants us to show students how to think, learn, and remember things. So right now in my class, the way my guide teacher was showing students is to take notes on the lecture slides. And one thing that I did differently was to add a little small assignment in between the slides. So for example, this past week when we did our slides, I stopped the presentation and I gave my students a mini worksheet to complete with questions from the slides. So that for me was a good method for them to learn or to how to remember or learn a certain subject matter. And I use Jim Burke wants us to basically pre-test our students to check their background knowledge, to see what we need to do in order for them to understand the subject that we're going to teach that day. He preaches that grading and assessments are not the same thing, and I tend to agree with them. When you're assessing a student, you are assessing on their knowledge on what they know about the subject. And one thing I think that works in my favor is that, for my subject, is that in history, you kind of need to know what happens prior to an event. So in order for students to understand why the Second World War occurred, we have to go back to the Treaty of Versailles. For the Treaty of Versailles, we have to go back to the First World War, and then from the First World War, we have to go back to imperialism, and so on and so forth. So that, for me, would be a good way to assess my students so I can check their knowledge on a previous topic or a new topic. Next thing also Jim Burke talks about is using the right technology in class. I am using just right now projector slides and videos, but I am working on that as well currently on improving it. So the classroom culture, Jim Burke wants us to support all our students to ensure that their success. We want to make sure that the curriculum that we have created for our students is not too rigorous, but at the same time not too low for them to not be learning in it. So basically, I have to be able to support different types of students in my classroom. And since my classroom is pretty low performing, I do have to scaffold a lot in that classroom for my lower students who are not capable of reading as much. Because I do have some students who are capable of finishing soon, but at the same time, I also have students who will take, a week to complete an assignment. I also want to maintain, so Jim Berg also preaches about maintaining a safe and productive learning environment. Just making sure we keep policies enforced. For me, this is something that I am struggling with because due to the fact that my classroom is so rowdy and it's the last period of the day, and it is a 2-period class. So for me, it's a challenge to make sure I keep my students calm and quiet during lecture or independent study or when I'm modeling an assignment. Curriculum basics, teaching skills and knowledge and context, same thing before. Just making sure that that the teachers understand or know what they're teaching so that the students feel confident in the teacher and they're not losing track of them. And then organizing your ideas around big ideas and essential questions. So asking basically, an example for the Russian Revolution, my big essential question, I guess, or one of them is, how was it possible that the Tsar, who was so powerful, was able to be overturned? And that's because I'm teaching my students that, well, Tsar's Russia was not the best place to live. The serfs at the time were being, persecuted and so on and so forth. And then helping students make connections. So again, just trying to do analogies, and I might do this later on as well, but maybe do some Venn diagrams, compare and contrast in regards to how the tyranny of the Tsars were compared to later dictators in Russia, and see what they did similarly and what they did differently. And then finally, designing a lesson or a unit for maximum learning and engagement. I want to make sure that students are able to recall what they have learned and studied in the beginning of the unit, and then being able to finish the unit with an assessment that helps them recall what occurred in there. And that is my presentation. Thank you.